All right. Well, thank you for coming back today. I'm back here presenting another presentation in regards to what's been going on with Donald Trump and his cabinet of hooligans. And so today we're just going to get into just some of the stuff that he's been up to. Yesterday, he gave the State of the Union, so I wanted to go over that. And then, in addition to that, he also has installed new tariffs for Canada, for Mexico, and he's still threatening China. You know, he has a lot of tariffs going on. So I just wanted to get into those things. And I have this on the board, We the People, because I do believe that the Constitution still exists. I believe that the Constitution is something that we should all be beholden to. And right now, I feel that Donald Trump is trying to overthrow not just the government, but the Constitution. And also, he's just trying to break down the administrative state and manage the people into a situation where we're in some sort of refined version of slavery. So I just wanted to go over some of these things that he's been doing and just to keep an eye on these things. Let's go ahead and get into a video that I wanted to say. This is a review of this channel, The Breakthrough. They're going to go over some of Donald Trump's speech at the White House or excuse me, in Congress when he did his State of the Union uh, address to both Democrats and Republicans. There's quite a few things that happened, but we're just going to look at some of the key things that he said. He talked for over an hour about this, these things that he's been doing. So let's get into it. Let's go over some of the stuff that he said.
We need a new system. We need a new society. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Brian. It's good to be back.
Well, really good to have you once again. I want to get your thoughts, your assessment, your perspective on the Donald Trump administration. Take two. Number two. He's number 47. He spoke before Congress on Tuesday. As I mentioned in the intro, he declared war on big parts of the world, including big parts of the United States. I want to start, though, with his attack on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, also known as the achievements or some of the achievements of the civil rights movement. At this point, DEI is so demonized by Trump, you could use the term Black America as a standard term for DEI.
Yeah, it's actually what they're trying to use or implement as the new N word. So that's why he keeps saying it like that.
Not that alone, but certainly Black America is being targeted by Trump. I want to play this clip from his State of the Union address and then get your comments.
We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and indeed the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer.
All right, Nazia, the tyranny of DEI. Your thoughts?
Well, I think what we see with the assault on DEI in Trump 2.0 is a parallel to the Muslim ban that we saw in Trump 1.0. So I'm sure your viewers and listeners remember that Trump's first run for president was really marked by this assault on Muslims in the U.S. And potential Muslims in the U.S., Muslim migrants. And he really campaigned on this platform of instituting a Muslim ban, something he sort of effectively accomplished in many ways. As one of his first acts as U.S. president, it was one of the first executive orders that he signed into law was the quote-unquote Muslim ban. He's sort of doing the same thing now with DEI. He is throwing some, peanuts at a certain segment of his base. And by that segment of his base, I mean the kind of racist, xenophobic Trump supporters who wanted to see him take such action when he came into office. But really, I'm still recovering from last night's performance in front of Congress. And I'm not really recovering from Trump's sort of predictable victory lap that he took. I'm recovering from the resistance cosplay that we saw from the Democrats that were sitting there holding up these placards as if they haven't also been at the forefront of assault on Black and brown people, on migrants, which is something I hope we can devote some time to in our conversation today.
No, indeed. And there was, for all of the sign holding by the Democratic Party, as you said, the embrace of so many policies that have been hostile to, antithetical to the needs and interests of Black and brown communities in the United States, that really stands out. But also the opposition is purely performative. There was one member of the House who actually heckled Trump for a minute. The rest of them just sort of sat on their hands. Hakeem Jeffries, we're going to play a clip later from Hakeem Jeffries. He said, what can we do? He's the leader. He's the Democratic Party.
Listen, I'm so over Hakeem Jeffries with his sellout ass. Now, Hakeem Jeffries has a long history in politics. I can say that. But Hakeem Jeffries is the ultimate sellout. The ultimate sellout. He sold his family out back in 1992. His uncle, he sold him out. He did some dirty tricks so that he could win the seat he's in now. And so I don't put it past him that he's not going to be that he's turned on the black community because he's not going to actually do anything or admit that there's something that can be done. But also I just don't think that he has the motivation to do it because he's been getting money from whoever, mostly Israeli PACs, for so long that he's been so focused on one thing. But don't he he really has no interest in helping his constituents at all. So let's continue though.
Leader in the House of Representatives. What can we do? Well, how did civil rights, going back to DEI, and of course DEI is not a panacea for racism, but it is a small sort of acknowledgement that things had to change. But when you think back to the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act or the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the two pieces of legislation that in a way were the most far-reaching pieces of legislation in U.S. history because they ended the formal legal system of apartheid, that did not come about because the Democratic Party or anybody in Congress was like riding a wave of militant protest. In fact, that came from below. That was against the Congress. That was against both parties. Dr. Martin Luther King was the leader we know about, but millions of people were actually in the streets fighting for years and years.
Yep.
That's how the Civil Rights Act got passed.
Absolutely. Your point about popular mobilizations being the reason that the needle ever moves in U.S. politics is really well taken. And to this point of what we'll discuss with Hakeem Jeffries saying, well, what can we do? I think the point is the Democrats, have already done it. So when we see these placards being held up in last night's speech saying, no gutting Medicare and Medicaid, people who remember their history will recall Biden's sort of record slashing of these programs. People who remember their history will remember Obama's slashing of SNAP benefits, food security benefits. So for these folks to now have the audacity to position themselves as somehow vehemently opposed to these moves is frankly an insult to anyone with any kind of recollection of recent U.S. history.
Yeah, they've been they've been on the.
It was Marx who said that capitalists are a warring band of brothers.
In my opinion, there's two sides to MAGA. MAGA has these ones, the with the red hats, and then you have the not Al Green, but these ones holding the sign. Those are MAGA blues. Those who say that they are Democrats or centrists or for the working person, the working man, but they're not actually for the working man. They just have one of these caps on, except for it's blue.
And more recently, Noam Chomsky said that the smartest way to keep people passive is to limit the spectrum of acceptable debate and then allow very lively debate within that spectrum. And what we saw last night was precisely that. It was a performance of there being a political spectrum in the U.S., when in actuality what we have is a regime of austerity in the U.S., regardless of who wins our presidential elections. I'm reminded of Joe Biden's chief of staff, Jeffrey Zients, who came from a private equity background, who had a fierce commitment to austerity, to slashing, social programs, and that was Joe Biden's right-hand man. I'm reminded of
these people love austerity, and I must say, Joe Biden's term in office to me was horrible because he mismanaged so many things all at the same time. So you can't say that, it was better under Biden, but it wasn't better under Biden. And then also Kamala Harris ran and said, well, it's just going to be more of the same. Like, what? What are you talking about? It's going to be more of the same. Well, then what are you running for? Nobody wants the same thing. But they continued. I mean, it's like the Democrats are tone deaf at this point, or they're willingly missing the point. They're willingly misunderstanding what people want from them.
Kamala Harris, when she was running for president, referring to her brother-in-law, an executive at Uber and a notorious union buster, as her right-hand man, a top advisor to her on the campaign trail. So, the faux outrage that we saw last night in Congress really comes as a slap in the face to any of us who remember these
they have a full Republican House in the Congress. They have a full Republican House.
I think it was 25 million people were removed from Medicaid by Joe Biden in the last 2 years. People are sort of searching for these answers. Why could Trump win? How could he win again after January 6th?
Because of what was presented, the options.
Something that actually never happened before.
It was slim pickings. It was like the dating scene out here. You know how if you are single and you're trying to go out and date, and you go on a date after date after date, and you're like, dang, what is going on? How come there's nobody out here? That's the same thing that we was feeling like during this election cycle. We was all so lethargic from it. It was so exhausting hearing about all the ads and the debates and the getting shots and the it was just so much that we had to endure during this election cycle. In addition to that, Trump was one he had been in and out of court for almost 4 years for different things, and then we was going through the border crisis, and then we was also going through them just doing just weird stuff with the economy. The Build Back Better wasn't passing. Then when it did pass, it didn't go to the industries that it was, so it didn't stimulate the economy the way that it was supposed to. And then it was just like a whole bunch of stuff that was happening all at the same time, and you wonder what conditions created this to happen. Well, all of those things all together was happening. It was a lot of pressure from the proletariat. It was a lot of pressure.
That his big punishment was he lost his Twitter account for a while. And here he is back again. But when you think of what Biden did, taking 25 million people off of Medicaid was expanded during COVID. It showed that Medicaid should have been expanded whether there was a COVID epidemic or not. But taking those 25 million people off, if you've lost healthcare coverage, you're not about to run out and enthusiastically vote for Joe Biden because his name is not Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, this morning I live in Philadelphia, and I saw a sticker, a big, large sticker on a pillar outside that said, "Deny, defend, depose." This is a shout out to Luigi Mangione. We live right now in a culture where assassin of an American CEO is celebrated in popular culture, where people are hosting letter writing campaigns to flood his mailbox while he's in jail. Because people have such a profound and rightful cynicism about how neither branch of our elected officials serve the needs of people. This is a country where you spend the last few months of your life arguing with your insurance company on the phone. So there is a profound cynicism that people have, and sometimes it is misplaced within our political system, which is why you see so many folks seeing Trump as some kind of political outsider who will go after the elements of the ruling class in politics that people are frankly.
Trump is no outsider. Trump is no outsider. His mentor is Ray Cohn. Ray Cohn was no outsider. Ray Cohn was the right hand man to Senator McCarthy, who was falsely accusing everybody of being a commie or a communist. Another word for communist is someone who likes to share resources. To capitalists, sharing resources is a sin. It's like the worst thing in the world to actually have to share anything. This is why the wealth disparity is the way that it is, and this is why they are imposing austerity, because capitalism is about not sharing anything. It's about hoarding wealth and power, and those who need that help or assistance in any way, they have to beg for it in a really disgusting way. And the people who benefited the most from it, the 1%, they get off on people on the bottom 99% begging them for this 1% because it makes them feel like a god or something like that. No, I'm not
fed up of seeing. I'll remind everyone that Trump's first run for presidency was marked by the slogan that he was going to drain the swamp, that he was going to get big business interests out of Washington. And then, of course, he appoints Rex Tillerson as his Secretary of State, the former CEO of ExxonMobil, and then quickly fire him. So the situation we see is certainly a direct product of people's frustration and cynicism about the system that we live under.
One of the noteworthy elements in this discussion, I think, is over the issue of Palestine, the issue of Gaza. You had Joe Biden and Blinken and Sullivan basically co-sponsoring the genocide against people in Gaza for 15 months before they left office. And then I saw an interview with Sullivan where he talked about how they had really strengthened the hand of U.S. foreign policy makers going forward, so that they were proud that they had given Trump a stronger hand to play with. This was something they were actually touting. For months they had said Trump is an existential threat to democracy as we know it, and they were like, no, but we made his hand a lot stronger. I want to talk to you about where things are in Gaza. Yes, Biden, Blinken, Sullivan, they carried out, supported, financed, armed the genocide. Trump wants to go one step further. He wants to get rid of the people of Gaza altogether. In the last days, there was an Egyptian plan for Gaza reconstruction. Just this morning, right before we started recording this show, Trump said, no, the Palestinians all have to leave. They're going all out.
That's some wild shit right there. How you going to tell somebody else in another country?
Then I want to get your response.
How you going to tell somebody else in another country that they have to leave their homeland because you want to use it to build bullshit? Like the things that come out of Trump's mouth are, it blows my mind that people are actually this evil in the world. And They're supporters. They're supporters of this type of wretched evil. I mean, it's just, but it is what it is. You know, Trump is not actually a Christian. He just says that so that he, can get away with as much as he can. And some people actually believe that he's a Christian. Like, come on, stop. But let's continue here.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They've taken...
Listen, he don't even care about his own countrymen. Donald Trump don't even care about Americans. Why is he talking about their in dangerous situation? He don't care. He don't even care about us over here. So why would he care about Palestinians over there? I mean, the things, it's just like, just say it. You're not going to sit here and play in my face. Just say it. And Trump is not good for the country. Trump is evil. Trump is evil, and those who support Trump are evil too.
A beautiful area, homes, safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job.
The people of the area. That's some wild shit. The
What's your
people
thought?
of the area. Like, you can't even say Donald Trump is a waste of life. Period, point blank. He is a waste of life. He should have never been born. Him and Hitler both.
Thoughts, Nazia? I mean, obviously, just a kind of fascistic approach towards the people of Palestine. The people of Palestine are not leaving. The people of Gaza are not leaving.
The people of Gaza are certainly not leaving. The heads of state, regardless of which political party they come from, have been hell-bent on a program of ethnic cleansing. Your point about the continuities between the Biden administration and the Trump administration are crucial here. And I know I keep harping back to this point, but I think it's really important for our political education to understand these connections. And I think for every outrageous, garish, genocidal statement made by the Trump administration, you can find its counterpart in the Democratic Party. So I'm reminded of this summer at the DNC when Kamala Harris announced her, formal run for president. When demonstrators outside were reading the names of children that had been killed by the U.S.-backed genocide in Gaza, the delegates for the Democratic Party walked by them, very, sensationally putting their fingers in their ear. Which I think is almost a Kafkaesque embodiment of the Democratic Party's position. One of Barack Obama's last acts in office was to promise a $38 billion aid package to the state of Israel. Last week, I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners saw Trump post on his Instagram this really bonkers AI clip of, him and Netanyahu in swim trunks poolside at a Trump resort in Gaza. But that was the same day that New York State Governor Kathy Hochul basically went after Hunter College. And the reason she went after Hunter College, which is part of the City University of New York, was because they had advertised a job for some professors from academic hires who study Palestine. And she was demanding that they remove the job posting. Which one is more outrageous? This almost laughable AI segment of, Netanyahu dancing around in Gaza, of Elon Musk throwing dollar bills at children in Gaza, or the Democratic governor of New York preventing a public university from hiring people who specialize in the study of a region of the world. To me, these are, two sides of really the same coin. One of the last press conferences held by the Biden administration, by his Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, saw not one but two journalists dragged out for daring to ask questions about this situation. One, Sam Husseini, and another, Max Blumenthal. One of them dragged out, as he put it, like a potted plant, his hands and legs grabbed, and while he's simply trying to ask a question that the administration has refused to answer. So lest we think we are living in some kind of implosive, exceptional time, but in many ways we are, we don't do ourselves any favors by looking away from the roots, from the continuities of the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my own assessment of the situation with the Trump administration and what they're doing is that it represents both continuity and some element of change. And I want to explain what I think the change is. The new Trump administration, unlike the first Trump administration, is basically representing a sector of the U.S. ruling class that is highly ideological, very right-wing. They are the authors, in the case of Russell Vought, or the architect of Project 2025.
Yeah.
And they are essentially at war against what they call the administrative state.
Yeah.
And they represent a sector of U.S. bourgeois politics that harkens back to the John Birch Society and a semi-fascistic current within the U.S. government that was vying for power up until 1964 with the Goldwater administration. So they are unhappy about the U.S. form of governance. They want the basic state apparatus of repression, but they want to change the sort of parts of the U.S. government that reflect at all, in any way, the expansion of democracy that took place in the United States, not as a consequence of the Democratic Party, not at all, But as a consequence of the civil rights mass movement that existed in the United States and other attendant social movements that were detonated by it, they want to, quote, make America great again by erasing those parts of the capitalist state that sort of expanded democracy at some levels for the middle class, the working class, and especially for poor people. So I do think there is basic continuity, as you're pointing out, but there is also an adjustment, because like any ruling class, it's made up of tendencies and factions, as you said, a warring band of brothers, as Karl Marx depicted it. And these changes within the ruling class, among ruling class elites, actually need to be paid attention to without sort of having the movement tie itself to this faction or that faction. Instead, to do as you're recommending, to be completely independent of both factions of the ruling
Yes,
class. Anyway, those are my
exactly.
thoughts.
Neither
Yeah.
one of these parties are for the working class. Neither one of them. I think that there has to be, we have to really educate ourselves on how both sides are playing tug of war to see who's going to actually win the oppression Olympics or the oppression war, because they're both trying to install oppression in a way on the proletariat in a way that brings us back to feudalism, slavery, anything like that. They have different ways of getting there, but they're both trying to get there. And neither one, the Republicans or the Democrats, are on the side of the working class people. They'll talk to you, they'll virtue signal you, and tell you, yeah, I'm for this. Like Donald Trump, he campaigned on. I seen a story today earlier where he said that he was going to add in vitro fertilization, so this woman voted for him and then end up getting fired from her job. He will tell you one thing and then do another, and then act like he never said the thing that he promised you. So this is happening on both sides to different factions of people. And so neither side has the interests of the working class, the proletariat, in their sights at all for any reason. Their job is to oppress you through laws, rules, regulations, and then to piss on you and tell you it's actually raining. That's their job.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think we are seeing a new kind of an austerity regime take over. It's not that we haven't had an austerity regime, as you described, with the cutting of Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP under prior administrations. Now we see this kind of language of, government efficiency, the Doge Bureau. We see this kind of gutting of social programs and, all kinds of federal programs that have, in many cases, long served huge segments of the American population.
Yeah.
This is really terrifying, and it's especially terrifying because we aren't armed with institutional tools to resist this. So I'm thinking of last night's speech. Democrats get a chance to respond to the speech that was made. The opposition gets a chance to respond. And last night, the senator who responded from Michigan, she responded by saying that Trump's speech would have made Reagan roll over in his grave. Okay, so here you have it again.
If you don't know about Ronald Reagan, Ronald Reagan was a staunch right-wing individual. Him and Margaret Thatcher are the austerity twins in terms of leaders, because when Ronald Reagan was doing the same thing that Trump is doing over here in the States, Margaret Thatcher was doing that over there in Europe. And they were the darlings of these types of people that back them.
The quote-unquote opposition can't help but try to out-Republican the Republicans. So really, what tools do we have as we see these social programs slashed, as we see a regime of austerity instituted? I mean, frankly, American morale is really low. When people hear, that the Department of Education is going to be gutted, which is terrifying. I say as somebody who works in higher education. I also know that people are fed up of spending hours on hold with the Department of Education only to get erroneous information about their, frankly, usurious student loans. They're sick of that. And so there's not a lot of faith in these institutions to begin with, which puts us and puts working people in the U.S. in a really scary position. Because in many ways, these programs are sort of primed to be gutted and to leave us with very little in the way of a social safety net. So I'm reminded of one of Trump's first declarations this time around, Trump 2.0, was, withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accords. Now, any serious climate scientist tells you that the Paris Climate Accords were BS. They were a token gesture toward remedying something that, frankly, needs kind of a revolutionary approach. And so, while it's terrifying that the Trump administration will see even more of an assault on our environmental protections, those protections were so flimsy to begin with. I mean, you have people who lost everything but months ago in Hurricane Helene, and we don't see a whisper of that in the media. People are barely talking about the California wildfires anymore.
Mm-hmm.
These climate catastrophes come and go. Now, it's just been completely normalized. So, yes, I'm with you. We are in a really, really scary position.
Yeah, and the other part of, I can say, because I I'm old enough that I witnessed as I was a child, but I was in America before the passage of the Civil Rights Act, and then during the 60s and the Vietnam War and the Black Liberation Movement. There was a kind of a cultural revolution in the United States, such that the movement of white supremacy that existed in the United States, which was a mass movement. It wasn't just like some retrogressive holdouts. I mean, George Wallace ran for president as a third party in 1968. He filled Madison Square Garden. I mean, Madison Square Garden was filled with George Wallace supporters in 1968. So people think of the 60s, they think, oh, the anti-war movement, Woodstock, all of these kind of progressive, left, liberal, radical things. There was also a mass movement of white supremacy. But that movement went into eclipse as a consequence of Black America basically fighting in such a massive way with tens of millions of people and people who were aligned with the Black community. There was a cultural revolution, so people couldn't talk the way they did talk. White people couldn't talk the way they did talk. There was a kind of a change in the lingo, in the language, in the atmospherics, but it wasn't unimportant because it also impacts consciousness if racism can be openly expressed. And I also feel like this is what Trump and what the Trump movement, what MAGA represents, not from the base, not from the voters who are pissed off at the establishment, but from the right-wing ruling class sectors. They would like to sort of end this what I call the second Reconstruction, which was the civil rights movement, as they ended the first Reconstruction movement, and sort of take the country all the way back where they have undiluted power. Now, for us as the left, the challenge is how to build upon earlier achievements and not be satisfied with them. How to keep fighting. How to fight for from my point of view, a socialist reconstruction of society, but at the same time recognizing that this assault by the ruling class is trying to marshal forces in society to launch kind of a counter-revolutionary wave. And the Democrats, in the face of that, yes, they've gone along with many of the same policies, but in the face of what they themselves, some of them at least in Congress, could recognize as to be a grievous racist movement, they're doing actually nothing to facilitate the kind of fight back that would be effective. Anyway, again, these are complicated, multi-layered issues for the progressive left forces. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really always struck, by some of these images you've shown of the civil rights struggle in this country. I spend a lot of my time in the classroom teaching about this era. One of the things I teach my students is, as you're describing, the kind of popular racial vengeance that can easily be activated by American heads of state, something that Trump does exceptionally well. A lot of folks don't remember that, before Trump had a political career, one of the first things he did in the realm of politics was buy out a page in the New York Times calling for the state of New York to bring back the death penalty so that it could execute the Black boys who had been wrongly accused of, being the Central Park Five. I show my students images from the era of, what Brian Stevenson has called racial terror in the U.S., the era of lynchings. And one thing that always strikes me about the photographs from this era is how much of a party these scenes were. It was grotesque, carnivalesque, children smiling in front of the body of a dangling corpse, and that these photos exist tell us just how recently this was. Many people in those photos are still alive today. I was talking to my students recently about, similarly, field trips that are taken by Israeli school children to basically observation decks that have the kind of binoculars that you see, atop the Empire State Building. You can see through those binoculars and observe the carnage in Gaza. There is something truly grotesque about the stage of empire that we're living through. And much of that became apparent with the sensationalist anti-immigrant raids that unfolded the first couple weeks of Trump's presidency. Now, of course, statistically, we know Obama was the biggest deporter, that Biden came second, in fact, and that there is a bipartisan push for a xenophobic deportation regime. I was really struck when I saw Kamala Harris on Anderson Cooper when she was on the campaign trail basically telling him that Trump didn't build enough border wall. But he campaigned on a platform of building border wall, and he didn't build enough. And I'm like, well, I had to make note of that so I could bring it into the classroom again. These are vengeful political moments that we find ourselves in. The targets of that vengefulness being the most vulnerable populations, undocumented immigrants, working class people of color, our growing prison population. So, I'm really struck by the kind of bloodthirsty nature of American racism.
Yeah, and we were just looking at some of the statistics. Biden actually deported more people in the first month of his administration in 2021 that Trump did in this second Trump 2.0 administration. So in spite of the performative Tom Homan and Trump speeches, actually Biden deported more people. Now the Trump administration is going to basically, because it's actually not succeeding 100%, Nazia, because as Tom Homan pointed out, people have become, quote, educated, meaning organizers in different communities are telling people, don't open your door for ICE, you have rights, here's what you should do. There's a lot of actual grassroots organizing going on around the country, so they haven't been able to deport the numbers they wanted to. And now what they're doing is, to the extent that the Biden administration created a temporary protective status for people from different countries who had to register in order to be eligible for these programs, now ICE and Tom Homan are going to basically go through all the people who actually gave their names, gave their phone numbers, gave their workplaces a year ago to the U.S. government. Those are the people who are going to be rounded up because they're easier to find and you don't have to have the drama of raids. And the other irony here is, and as you know very well, but I want to keep saying it because for people who might be fooled by Trump's politics, if the U.S. succeeded at deporting 15 million undocumented families, people, the U.S. capitalist economy would basically stop functioning. So they're actually not going to do that.
So that's kind of what I wanted to go over with that particular video there, but I did have some more stuff that I wanted to go over. So in the speech that the State of the Union address that Trump did yesterday, he was talking about he mentioned a few things, but one of those things was Elon Musk. He kept gesturing to Elon Musk and how he's created the Department of Government Efficiency, and that he's you know doing good things, if you want to call it that. So let me let's go over this little story here. Elon Musk wants to privatize the Postal Service and Amtrak. So basically, he wants to gut all of the government programs and privatize everything so that they can drive up the price of everything, overcharge you for stuff, give you less options, and they don't have to have the best service. So Elon Musk says that he believes the U.S. Postal Service and Amtrak need to be privatized, and that we should privatize anything that can reasonably be privatized. But they want everything privatized. This is what they're trying to get to, where Putin is in his country, where there's only a few people that own the major industries. And this is what they're working towards. This is why Donald Trump is posturing the way he is to Putin, Rasputin, and the way that they're doing the same thing with Netanyahu, because they all want to take on new pieces of territory. Trump wants Greenland. Putin wants Ukraine, and Netanyahu wants Gaza. So they're all on this. They're all on this whole weird kick where they want to just kill swaths of people so that they can take their land and do whatever they want. So speaking virtually at the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference, Musk said it's kind of embarrassing how other countries have way better passenger rail than we do. No, he's talking about how other countries can control people by privatizing everything. This is about control, and that's the only thing this is about. Amtrak is a sad situation. It's like, if you're coming from another country, please don't use our national rail. It can leave you with a very bad impression of America. But really, this is not Elon Musk's country. He just came here as an adult. So his real country is South Africa, and or wherever he was born at in South Africa, and also in Canada. I think we should privatize anything that can be privatized, just so you've got a feedback loop for improvement. Is what happens when something's privatized. He said basically something's got to have some chance of going bankrupt, or there's not a good feedback loop for improvement. But he's lying here, because we all know that he's the king or the welfare queen of government bailouts. So there is no chance for him to lose no money, because he's always getting bailed out. Tesla almost went bankrupt. SpaceX almost went bankrupt. Hyperloop did go bankrupt. Those solar panels went bankrupt. Like, everything that he's had has, if the government did step in and give him a bunch of money, it went bankrupt. So, but Musk acknowledged that a bunch of these things require actions for Congress. But we know that they don't care about Congress and how things work in this country. Again, this is not Elon Musk's country. His country is somewhere in South Africa, or is South Africa and Canada. Those are his countries, not America. He's just here because he makes a bunch of money. He's exploiting Americans. That's all he really wants to do. All right, so Musk has tried to quash government-funded high-speed rail projects in the past. See, this is the thing. He's talking about Amtrak is a sad situation. It's like, if you're coming from another country, please don't use our national rail. But he was supposed to build a private rail system. Do you remember the Hyperloop? He was supposed to do it. And he says basically something's got to have some chance of going bankrupt, or there's not a good feedback loop for improvement. But you failed. You failed at it. So he's probably going to set himself up to get a big contract so he can start the Hyperloop back up. That's probably what this is all about. Vance reported in his Musk biography that in 2013, the Tesla CEO's Hyperloop proposal originated out of his hatred for California's proposed high-speed rail system. This is what I'm saying. He took government money, taxpayer money, to build a project that was a money pit and never came into fruition. It's now basically a graveyard where they tried to build this. They built it in Vegas, and it's basically it's desolate. Like, it's abandoned. The project is completely abandoned. There's nobody there. There's no, I mean, you can see fencing up, like, to not, for people to not go in the area. It's just, he just wastes taxpayer money left and right. Nobody's going to Mars. Why are we paying for this? I don't want to pay for his stupid projects. Why doesn't he pay for it by himself without taxpayer money? So that's the story there. He wants to privatize everything that they can. So with the government, what they're doing with this Doge or department of this douchebag fake department, because it wasn't enacted by Congress, but this fake government that they installed, they're going through. First, they was looking at everybody's social security information, the phone, the numbers, and all of our private information. We don't know what they did look at or what they didn't look at because they had servers that they were backing up our private information to. How do we know where that stuff went? When you look, like, not for nothing, when you log onto a social media site, you know that there is a chance that your information could be sold, right, by the social media site owner. But many people, older people, veterans, disabled people that just don't get on social media at all, they didn't sign up for you to be just going through their information, selling up their stuff. But even still, nobody is okay with just some random person rummaging through our private stuff where he had access to everything, tax information. I mean, it's just so weird that people are okay with this. And I know a lot of people are pissed off about it because I'm one of them, but it's just so, it's very uncomfortable to have this South African come over here in this country and rummage through American stuff. So this is another thing that Trump talked about in that speech was about him putting these tariffs on Canada and Mexico and China. But this is Justin Trudeau's speech. It's very short, but let's listen to this.
The United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Encore aujourd'hui, on se voit forcé d'imposer des droits de douane de 25% sur 155 milliards de dollars
on $155 billion worth of U.S. products, 30 billion,
30 milliards de dollars de façon
30 billion immediately, and in 21 days, $120 billion worth of U.S.
Today, we will also be challenging these illegal actions by filing dispute resolution claims at the World Trade Organization and through the USMCA. But in the meantime, Our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner. And should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. Measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war.
And there is not, really.
Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow.
Like, just imagine the combination of things that come over to the US from Canada, from Mexico, and from China. So there's a lot of like products that China makes that are in places like Target, Walmart, just like your standard like general store. A lot of that stuff comes from Canada. A lot of our fruit comes from Mexico, and a lot of our industrial stuff comes from Canada. So all this combined, and also gas prices are going up. They're already up. I mean, it's just wild. And then there's also that bird flu that's still running rampant, and so the eggs and milk are high. So I don't think that the food prices are going to go down anytime soon at all, because not just the tariff situation, but also the fact that the jobs that Trump has cut is going to be affecting so many different sectors of the economy. Things are probably going to go up. It's already affecting the stock market. The Dow dropped over 1,200 points. Like, that's wild. So that was Trudeau on his speech about his return trade war, return trade tariffs. And this is from NBC News. It says Canadian stores pull U.S. liquor from shelves as Trump's tariffs take effect. The tariffs could increase prices on alcohol imports from Mexico and Canada and hurt the sale of U.S. spirits sold in those countries. So you see this here. And then I seen a TikTok where they were putting all of the Canadian stuff up here and all the U.S. Made stuff down here, specifically those in the red states. But it says the empty space on a shelf where U.S. made liquor had been sold at the Society des Alcools du Québec store in Montreal. As the Trump administration's tariffs on Canada and Mexico went into effect Tuesday, Canadians discovered empty shelves where U.S. Liquor products were once stocked. Canadian social media users posted photos and videos of stores across the country seemingly pulling U.S.-made liquor from their inventories. Joshua Grapey, a university student in Quebec, posted a photo Wednesday showing empty shelves in a store in Quebec where U.S. liquor products were once displayed. Look at that. They just took them off. They're not selling it. And anything, I'm sure, that they purchased, pre-purchased or anything like that will not go on those shelves. So this is what Trump is bringing to America. Yeah, I hate that this is happening to Canada, to Mexico, and also to China. Because the thing is that, in my opinion, I feel like that Trump is envious of not just um, Rasputin, but Xi Jinping, because he wants to, there was a hot mic of Trump saying that he wants people to listen to him, to obey him, to he wants to control people. He was like, he was saying something about a leader in another country, and he was saying, yeah, his people listen to everything he say. I want my people to do the same. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? His MAGA supporters already support him, but I guess maybe he wants everybody. I guess he wants everybody to listen to him like that. But I'm not. He listen. He may be trying to be a dictator to the people all over this country, but he's not dictating me. No, absolutely not. So, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine plans to force Republicans to vote on Trump's Canada tariff. So, this senator, I'm telling you, it's a bunch of nut jobs um, that want Trump to continue with what he's doing. Like, he's a complete idiot in office. Him, Fat Boy Vance, Forehead Musk, all these people are weird, disgusting people that are in the office just running amok. And I'm telling you, I think, in my opinion, I think that they're doing something with all that money that they're freezing. I think that they're sending it somewhere that we'll never see it again. So I wanted to talk about Hakeem Jeffries, because everybody's been asking, where are the Democrats? Where are the Democrats? How come they have not responded, or how come they haven't responded in the way that people feel that they should? That there should be some, you know, it should be better responses here. But this is the Democrats. But again, I told you, Hakeem Jeffries is a sellout. So let's listen to his response. This is a response that he had after the State of the Union.
Last night, Donald Trump delivered one of the most divisive speeches made by a president in American history. Republicans aren't trying to bring the country together. They are tearing us apart. Republicans aren't trying to move America forward. They want to turn back the clock. Republicans aren't interested in improving the economy or making life better for everyday Americans. They want to enact the largest cut to Medicaid in American history and are hurting our veterans. Far-right extremists are desperately trying to jam their reckless budget down the throats of the American people. They want us to step back. House Democrats will continue to fight back. We want to fight back in the Congress, in the courts, in the community, in urban America, in rural America, suburban America, small town America, the heartland.
He talks, but nothing is coming out of his mouth. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Nothing. I mean, his speech is as bad as he looks. Like, what the hell? He's not saying anything. What the hell are you talking about, dude?
Of America, we're going to push back aggressively against Donald Trump, his administration, and the extreme MAGA Republican agenda until we can end this national nightmare and bring the American dream to life for every single person in this country. That's our North Star, and it will continue to be our focus. And we must always stand up for our veterans, those who have worn the uniform to protect and serve our great country. They've been there for us, sacrificed for us, shown courage and extraordinary bravery for us. We should always stand with them. Thousands of veterans across the country have been hurt by the extreme actions of Donald Trump, the Trump administration, Elon Musk, and MAGA Republicans. That's unacceptable. It's unconscionable. It's un-American. There are several veterans here today to tell their stories to the American people about what is happening and the fact that veterans all across this great country are being harmed. Our promise to veterans in this country is that we will always stand with you. We will love and cherish you.
I'm sorry. This is it's just so weak, and it's just missing passion. It's missing fire. I don't know what he's saying. I don't care what he's saying because I can tell that in his demeanor he's not going to do shit. Oh my gosh. Let's look at this other one.
Hakeem Jeffries, you just heard the speaker there, Mr. Jeffries. What's your response to him saying you're making demands that are unprecedented to keep the government open?
We want to make sure that the government remains open and that we can agree upon a spending bill that meets the needs of the American people in terms of their health, their safety, our national security, and their economic well-being. And when Congress appropriates the money, the administration, whether it's a Democratic administration or Republican administration, needs to spend that money consistent with improving the...
So yeah, Jerry in Canada, you said, how is Trump and Elon still running things? I just don't get it. The reason why is because this guy right here is a MAGA blue. What I call a MAGA blue, okay? A MAGA blue is one that has that Make America Great hat on. Instead of it being red, though, his is blue. And so you're going to hear him say, be a supposed opposition, but it's not actually going to have any sustenance. So you're not going to actually get any results that you would expect an opposition to bring. And so that's why Trump and Elon are still running things, because he's a MAGA blue hat. He's, like in those movies where you think the good guy is the good guy, but he's not the good guy. Now, I wouldn't say that he's like a rogue like Elon Musk, but I do think that he is bought and paid. Like somebody he's not going to do anything. Like he's already a neutralized individual to where he's not going to actually make any meaningful change for anybody other than those who are already paying him. And if you look on his donation record as a congressperson, a person in Congress, you can see there isn't really people who back him. It's corporations. So that's why he doesn't have any passion, because he doesn't care.
The lives of the American people. That's not unreasonable. That's entirely reasonable.
Is that a bottom line demand? The Democrats will not vote for the continuing resolution unless they're assured that the president will spend the money that is appropriated?
Well, those discussions are ongoing. Rosa DeLauro is the top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee. She continues to sit down in good faith to try and reach an agreement over the next few days, and we certainly hope that can happen.
How about, were you comfortable with Al Green, Congressman Al Green, and his interrupting of the president and other moves you saw from the Democrats yesterday? You heard Speaker Johnson there say the Democrats were not showing decorum.
Vast majority of Democrats showed restraint. Listen to what the president had to say.
Are you serious right now? Are you serious? So, oh my gosh, that's his response. Is that most of us was being good. Most of us were. It's just that, oh my goodness, what a piece of shit. You little shithead. He's so weak. There's no way anybody's actually following this guy. I mean, it's so, oh my gosh. I can't believe this is his weak ass answer. He's a bitch. Oh my God, this dude is a straight bitch. There's no way that this is your response and you're supposed to be in a literal showdown and you're talking about, well, we was the good, we was being good. What the fuck you talking about? Oh my gosh. He wouldn't have even been able to ask me that question. What do you mean? I would have said, you better be glad all of us wasn't up there acting a fool. Are you kidding me?
Strongly
Hold on. One more again.
Majority of Democrats.
Oh my gosh. It's so y'all, it's so disgusting to hear that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If this was like somebody that I knew, like my dad or my son or my husband, I think I would be disgusted I would want to have a conversation with them about their posture and their fight. Absolutely not.
You heard Speaker Johnson there say the Democrats were not showing decorum.
vast majority of Democrats showed restraint, listened to what the president had to say,
Oh my
and of course
God.
we strongly disagree. The biggest problem that I had with the speech is that there was nothing said, nothing laid out, nothing articulated by Donald Trump to meet the needs of the American people, particularly as it relates to the economy. Donald Trump promised to lower costs. In fact, he promised to lower costs on day one. We know that grocery prices aren't going down, they're going up. Inflation is going up. And the
But
stock
here's the thing: the Republicans are literally are introducing bills into legislation. But the Democrats have not put forth any meaningful bills to counteract and try to potentially pass some of these things. Why is it that the Republicans are the only ones putting out any meaningful bills that would help the proletariat? It doesn't matter if Donald Trump is not doing it. Why ain't your ass doing it, nigga? What the fuck?
market is going down, which is hurting the retirement security of everyday Americans.
You heard Speaker Johnson there. He said tariffs have worked in the past. They're going to work again.
Tariffs against our North American allies and others that are being applied in a ham-handed fashion are going to further erode the economy.
So is somebody speaking to him and telling him what to say? Because that's what it sounds like. Look.
The economy, and we're seeing the consequences of Trump's inattention, inaction, and now his direct assault on a stable economy by enacting these tariffs. Costs are going to continue to go up, and the American people will be hurt.
Did Democrats hear anything from the president last night that they can support?
I was struggling to hear anything relative to what the president had to say in terms of bringing the country together. That was one of the most partisan and divisive speeches ever delivered by an American president.
I ain't never seen somebody that can just stand there and just every answer is a defeated answer. Well, we're defeated. Well, we're defeated there too. Well, did you know what? We're defeated there too. Did you know we're defeated? Hey, did you know we're defeated? Like, get the fuck.
And that's unfortunate.
I can't believe this
we
is.
We will continue to try to solve problems.
Listen, the Democrats are cooked. The Democrats, as a matter of fact, there are no more Democrats, okay? Because this is your leader. This is your king. This guy isn't. Oh my gosh. There's no way that this guy is going to lead anybody out of any mess that's happening right now. He doesn't have the fervor. He doesn't have the heart. He don't have the heart for it. He's been selling out. He sold his uncle out back in 1992. His own family. His uncle was invited to speak at a college that he was going to. And the college, because his uncle was like basically a radical, because he used to be in the Black Panthers. And so he was coming to speak at his college. He had invited him to come and speak there. This happened in 1992. The uncle, the college wanted the uncle speech to be canceled because he used to be in the Black Panthers. But he didn't stand up for him, and he didn't fight for him to do anything to either get his uncle in or to stand up and say, this isn't, the Black Panthers weren't radical. They just wanted respect. Like, how is that radical? But at the end of the day, he turned on his uncle. He turned on his uncle. I read the story. I have to pull it up again. But he basically sold his uncle out. And from then on, he has been selling out every Black person that he can. So we know that he sold his own community out. He first sold his own family out, and then he sold his community out. And if he sold us out, he don't care about any other constituents that he has either. So this is why he has no passion. He's a sellout, like literally. All of the people that donate to this man's, if you look on his record of donations, there's nothing but corporate people and Israel PACs. No people, no grassroots, no actual individuals that are donating to this person. So we can't. He don't care. He don't care.
Americans. We want to make life better for every single American in every community, in every corner of this country. But it's unfortunate that our Republican colleagues seem more determined to pass a massive tax cut for their billionaire donors, while at the
That's just it. How come they're not putting forth any meaning? Why aren't we hearing any meaningful legislation from the Democrats? How come he's not saying, well, look, they got this massive tax bill, but we've got this other bill that would help the American people? Don't that make sense? Wouldn't that make sense? Like that's your job, is to pass legislation. So why don't you have anything on the floor going around to respond to this? Instead, I told you, he's MAGA blue.
same time cutting Medicaid, perhaps in the largest possible fashion ever in this country.
You also heard the speaker there say that these protests that many Republicans and some Democrats are seeing in their district to the cuts by Doge and Elon Musk are by paid protesters.
Republicans are proposing the largest Medicaid cut in American history, George. Children will be devastated. Families will be devastated. People with disabilities will be devastated. Seniors will be devastated. Nursing homes will close and hospitals will shut down. The American people are upset about the effort to take away their health care. These aren't paid protesters. These are concerned citizens. The Republicans can try to run away from their extreme budget. We will not let them hide.
Congressman Jeffries, thanks for your time.
What?
Thank you.
Hey, he looked like he killed that interview. Look at the smug look on his face. Dude.
Let them hide.
Congressman
No, you didn't kill this interview. Hey, leave the building like Elvis. Go ahead and log off the internet, Hakeem Jeffries. Log off the internet and don't come back on it. Y'all supposed to be cooking up some legislation. So Al Green said he working on his impeachment arguments. So I think that he presented something initially in regards to the impeachment, but I guess the full thing isn't completed. So I'm like, okay, all right. Well, at least we have that. But, again, it has to go through the Senate as well. And the Senate has to also, do their part in it, which we know it's not, they should still walk it through, though. They should still walk it through, but they should also be walking through other pieces of legislation. Look, these tariffs are about to be, the blowback is about to be a problem here in America. It's going to be a problem in Canada and also in Mexico and in China, where all of our 4 countries are being hit. So let's see. But yeah, I just feel like there isn't going to be any meaningful responses from the Democratic Party, because they're not working on anything. They're not working on anything other than fighting or talking over those particular bills that are currently en route. But they don't have anything in particular on file. Now I'm going to look it up and see if they have anything that would respond to what's being proposed. But you can't that can't be your only thing in your arsenal, to where the only thing you can do is just say no for this bill, but you don't have any other bills, when that is one thing that you can do. Let's listen to this here. This is the protest from the veterans, because that they just cut a bunch of jobs. I think 7,000 jobs from the veterans and from Social Security. They cut 7,000 jobs from there. So let's take a look at this protest.
From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Evening Edition.
Well, we begin with the Bay Area veterans fighting back against President.
And Mark, you might want to get the fuck out of my live if you can't be respectful up in here, asshole.
Trump's massive cuts to federal employees and potentially their services that they rely on. Good evening, I'm Ryan Yamamoto. Protests were held outside of VA clinics in Oakland and Santa Rosa today. This all comes as we learn that the Trump administration plans to fire as many as 83,000 workers at the Department of Veteran Affairs and Jobs. John Ramos spoke to Bay Area vets who say they feel betrayed after many put their lives on the line for our country.
The shock and awe of the Trump administration continues. This time the fight isn't with a bunch of wild-eyed liberals, but with a group who would traditionally be supportive of a conservative Republican president. Outside the VA hospital in Santa Rosa, it wasn't the usual crowd of protesters. Veterans, many of them from the Vietnam War, were feeling betrayed.
I thought it was pretty much hands-off veterans. You know, nobody wants to say I sponsored a bill to cut the veterans' benefits, but being Trump did it, all his lapdogs will do whatever he says.
There was plenty of anger about Donald Trump. Last week, nationwide, 1,000 VA workers were let go by Elon Musk's Doge, with another 1,400 in the last few days. They are the workers these people rely on for health care.
Be strong during this, and don't let fear take us over. We have to stay strong. We have to stay united.
Katie Weber is a disabled veteran who says many of the wounds suffered by Vietnam veterans are as much mental as they are physical.
We've already lost 2,400 people in 2 weeks. So we have a problem if we lose any more. If we lose these folks, we're done. You're going to see suicide like you never saw.
That's some crazy shit. But they don't care. They don't care. Again, this is all about controlling people because they already have power and they already have wealth and they already have influence. The next thing is to control masses of people. This is why they want to kill people in Gaza. They want to kill people in Ukraine. They want to kill people anywhere. Any way that they can oppress people, this is what they're on. And then there's these protesters, not the protesters, there's these supporters of Trump's disgusting ass. That these are the type of people they actually fantasize about these type of things, like being slaveholders and shit like that.
Gunnery Sergeant George Sager, the betrayal feels personal. The Vietnam veteran voted for Donald Trump in 2016 because he thought it would shake things up and force the two parties to work together.
What I expected, that he would agitate both sides of the political spectrum, came to fruition. But
do you like the result of that?
No.
He's not the kind of guy you would expect to be at odds with a Republican president. But like most veterans, he considers his VA benefits to be part of a sacred obligation.
I made a contract with the U.S. government. I've held up my end of that contract to the best of my ability. The government is always trying to change that contract down to the smallest dollar amount that they possibly can.
That's some wild. But see, the U.S. government doesn't keep its contracts, and if they do, they break them as soon as they can. Because Donald Trump made a trade deal. He did a trade deal with Canada, and then now he's breaking it.
Warrior who fought for his country more than 50 years ago says he would be willing to do it again.
I'm willing to step forward if needed still today.
To do what?
To defend the country and the Constitution. But
physically?
If need be.
Do you think it's going to come to that?
I hope not.
Each of these veterans are in some way a casualty of war. Now they're wondering if they will soon become a casualty of Doge.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And the message was very similar in the East Bay. Veterans and supporters rallied outside the VA outpatient clinic in Oakland, calling the cuts by the Trump administration and Doge a, quote, blatant attack on veterans.
The rights that we have earned are being threatened. And we shouldn't be forced to have to live under those types of conditions. We shouldn't have to fight for what we've already fought for.
Well, the Trump administration says the reorganization will not begin until August.
You know, time and time again, like, it's just going to keep happening. And, you know, the people that support him, sooner or later, it's going to come and hit you, just like it's hitting everybody else. There's people that keep saying, oh, I support. But as soon as it hit, it's wild that you support as long as anybody else but you is getting cut out the mix, and you get a piece of this whatever this bullshit pie. But as soon as it hits you, now you want to. Now it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. But you're going to find out the hard way that eventually it is going to come around and it is going to hit you. And this is the last video here, but Al Green, he stood up and he protested in Congress, in the chamber. And I wanted to show kind of like his reaction. This was him. I'll play this one, but this was here. Here's one here.
I regret that I had to do what I did, but it was a matter of conscience. It really was.
Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant at Arms to restore order to the joint session.
The rules were applied to me. I acknowledge it. I accept it, but I will do it again because I didn't do it for the Al Green who was there on the floor. I was doing it for people who need Medicaid, and the calling to help them doesn't go away by my being censured. I would do it again.
Yeah, so this is kind of like what happened right after.
Going to jail with John Lewis for protesting. We talked about peaceful protests. And one of the things that he called to my attention was that we have to be willing to suffer consequences. That's what peaceful protest is about. You get in the way, if you're arrested, then you've got to be willing to suffer consequences. So I'm not angry with the speaker. I'm not angry with the officers. I'm not upset with the members who are going to bring the motions or resolutions to sanction. I will suffer the consequences. But I must add this. What I did was from my heart. People are suffering. And I was talking about Medicaid. I didn't just say you don't have a mandate. I said you don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. And I mentioned that the cap should be lifted higher on Social Security. And we have to protect Medicaid, Medicare. And I did it from my heart. And I will suffer whatever the consequences are. But truthfully, I would do it again.
Well, have you tried reaction to some in your own party? I mean, earlier this morning, for instance, Leader Schumer said it's better to organize around policies versus a disruption like last night. I mean, do you feel that your actions were a distraction in any way from Democrats' overall message?
I believe that on some issues that impact one's conscience, it is better to stand alone than not stand alone.
Have you talked at all to lead to Dem leadership?
That's your people, Sherman.
I have not. I found myself this morning having to cope with the loss of a friend. Sylvester Turner and I grew up in politics. That's a great loss.
Were you with him at all last night? Because I know you said you addressed it. Was there anything unusual?
I didn't find anything unusual. We talked. He was on the floor. I introduced him to someone. I fell to my knees when I heard it this morning. I could not believe it, and I still have problems coping with it. He was a very dear friend, a great person, and it's a big loss. So I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for not being somewhere at this time when you're trying to get information. I'm sorry. That's where I am now. And I wish Mr. Schumer the best. I have no reason to be critical of him. I wish him the best. But there are just some issues that are just so important. Medicaid is one of those issues. We're talking about poor people now. I have good health care. So does Mr. Schumer. But there are some people who need this. And we're talking about cutting Medicare, Medicaid. We're talking about cutting Medicaid. And Medicare too, possibly, as well as Social Security. But we got to raise that cap. If you are making $170,000+, less than $180,000, 100% of your income will be taxed for a certain amount of Social Security. And if you make $1 billion, you will only be taxed up to $170,000+. There's something about that that's just not acceptable when you have a system that has helped poor people, senior citizens. We cannot allow the system to just go unnoticed until it becomes a major problem. We have to do something about that. And raising the cap is the way to resolve the issue. Let those who are making much more. Pay a greater share. I have no problems. I make more than $170,000 a year. I think I ought to be taxed more. And we need to do this to protect Social Security. But it was Medicaid that I said, you don't have a mandate to cut Medicaid. I regret that some in the press have reported that I said, you don't have a mandate. I said to cut Medicaid multiple times. And I still stand by that, but I'm not angry with anybody. I'll accept the sanctions, whatever they are. But I will be candid. I would do it again. I would do it again.
Okay, so that's all for this evening. I'll be back tomorrow. We can go over Bernie Sanders and his responses. And also there's always something that Trump is doing, because again, he's destroying the country. So we'll keep going through and watching what he's doing. He's dismantling the administrative state, gutting all of the constitutional rights and privileges that we have. And so his billionaire friends can come in and privatize everything, jack up the price of everything, and make everybody some refined version of a slave. But I'm not going. All right. I will see you guys later. Bye.